It's that time of year again. I'm back. You're back. I have missed you. A few things have happened to me of consequence since I've seen you last. Most notably, and, well, I don't know if it's important or not. To you, maybe not. But to me, it's very important. I have a new phone. It's no longer antiquated. I'm now hip with the 5G juice. Speaking of that juice, who got juiced the third time? Could be every 6 months. More juice, baby. So, no opinions here. Opinions, catch me on the flip side. Not in the comments here. No, just, you know how to get a hold of me. Everyone's got one. An opinion, you know. OMG Macron. Omicron. There's a new fear out there, and now we have a new fear in a world of new fear. So, put that fear in your ear. Get in gear. Anyway, this is my mug for the evening. And of course, I've got the 5G juice in it. So, oh, it tastes like the holidays, doesn't it? Spicy. Well, I'm glad you're here. If you've been following along with this ever before, welcome back, and you'll notice a few things are exactly as they have been, and a few tiny things have changed, and there's a small adaptation. And if you can study through the other videos, then perhaps you will get the clue. But more importantly, we are collected tonight on this Christmas Eve. That's when this is premiering. I didn't know if I wanted to do Christmas Day night, because a lot of people are sort of twiddling their thumbs for Christmas Day night. But if you missed the premiere Christmas Eve, because you guys are doing dinner and parties and or whatever, then see it on Christmas Day night, right? So that you got it. In this hour and something, you have a dynamite show lined up for you. A cold read. Tonight's cold read is Algernon Blackwood, The Kit Bag. Did I get any preliminary look? I wish I had more to say, but you know what? I'm gonna look like I'm just gonna be the kitty with the mouse tail hanging out of his or her mouth, you know. So, I've got a lot coming up, and it's not STL, but it has everything to do with you, and I want to see you out there, and I want to talk to you in person, moreover, or give me a private message or something. Stay in touch. Yes, there is news. But for today's program, it's going to be amazing. We have the wonderful Forever Green. We might even have secret message and announcement from one of our friends, and perhaps, or you know what, maybe not. Could happen. If so, I'll put it right there. And if nothing happens, did something just happen? I don't know. Maybe it did, maybe it did not. And so we go. Right? Nothing better, right? So just understand, Algernon Henry Blackwood, born in 1869, died in 1951, was an English broadcasting narrator, journalist. Oh, and don't begrudge if I slip into a faux English accent for this, because it's difficult to avoid, because these texts, a lot of these texts are written with an English intonation. They're written in the Queen's English, indeed. So, or at that time it was, who was it? Edwards? We'll see. It must have been Edwards. That was 1908. Let's see. No, Vicky was still around. Yes, right. So, which reminds me, got to invite a few other people to come to this event. And well, I didn't initially write the URL down because, of course, there was no file to upload yet, right? When I made the invite, so everything needs to be edited, everything needs to be totally straight, and then I'll get the URL, put it up. Okay, so that's why. So, was it Algernon Henry Blackwood, 14 March 1869, this is from Wikipedia, to 10th of December 1951, was an English broadcasting narrator, journalist, novelist, and short story writer, and among the most prolific ghost story writers in the history of the genre. The literary critic S.T. Joshi stated that his short story collection, Incredible Adventures, may be the premier weird collection of this or any other century. Well, we're a few centuries beyond that now. And I'll leave it to you, dear readers. Oh, that's the holidays. It's the holidays. Woo. So, I'll leave it to you, dear readers, to judge whether he is the premier weird, whether Incredible Adventures is the premier weird collection of this or any other century. You got to read it. You got to pick it up. Incredible Adventures, Algernon Henry Blackwood. I'm quite positive you can just get that on your reading device for free if you know where to look. If I find it on Internet Archive, I'll post it here where the video is for free, and you can just download that, put it on your device, read it on your little swatch, on the big swatch, on the important swatch. I don't mean to belittle it. It's your swatch, of course. So, to satisfy his interest in the supernatural, he joined the Ghost Club. Look that up. He never married. According to his friends, he was a loner, but also cheerful company. Sounds familiar, does it not? Blackwood's life parallels his work more neatly than perhaps that of any other ghost story writer. Like his lonely but fundamentally optimistic protagonist, he was a combination of mystic and outdoorsman. When he wasn't steeping himself in occultism, including Rosicrucianism or Buddhism, he was likely to be skiing or mountain climbing. Blackwood was a member of one of the factions of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, as was his contemporary Arthur Machen. Kabbalistic themes influenced his novel, The Human Chord. His two best-known stories are probably The Willows and The Wendigo. He would also often write stories for newspapers at short notice, with the result that he was unsure exactly how many short stories he had written, and there is no sure total. though Blackwood wrote a number of horror stories, his most typical work seeks less to frighten than to induce a sense of awe. Good examples are the novels The Centaur, which reaches a climax with the traveler's sight of a herd of mythical creatures, and Julius de Vallon and its sequel, The Bright Messenger, which deal with reincarnation and the possibility of a new mystical evolution of human consciousness. And here we go, the kit bag, Algernon Blackwood, from Pall Mall magazine, originally published in 1908. Why do we say O instead of 0? I'm going to take 0. Anyway, here we go. Thank you. You've got a break coming up. Don't know when it is. I'll write it. Let me just write it. Just find a good place to break, and we'll break. Let's see here. Ooh, that's a good place to break. Just a minute. Oh, wow. Okay. Here. Stay with me now. This program is still rolling. We're still going. Just a minute. This is going to be amazing. And I'll go back and I'll read a little more. And we'll get this going. This is going to be beautiful. I'm going to write break right here. Break. And then we'll just go like that. This one looks better. Just a minute. And you won't even see this, but it's for me. It's for me alone. This is going to be great. It'll flag me. It'll be good. So, I'm so happy to read this, to present this to you. Yes. You want this on Audible? You can find someone else to read it for you on Audible. You want this on YouTube with a professional actor? Go. You can find it. It's not. These stories are not, unique to this program. But the delivery is what you get for your money's worth at this program, right? No, glad to have you here. And I can't wait to read through this with you. We'll both discover at the same time. I don't know if I forgot any notes. I'll mention them later. But really, I think we're up to date, yeah? And you know how to get a hold of me, in case we're not. Oh, that's the holidays. When the words "not guilty" sounded through the crowded courtroom that dark December afternoon, Arthur Wilbraham, the great criminal Casey and leader for the triumphant defense, was represented by his junior, but Johnson, his private secretary, carried the verdict across to his chambers like lightning. "It's what we expected, I think," said the barrister, without emotion, "and personally, I'm glad the case is over." There was no particular sign of pleasure that his defense of John Turk, the murderer on plea of insanity, had been successful, for no doubt he felt, as everybody who had watched the face felt, that no man had ever better deserved the gallows. "I'm glad too," said Johnson. He sat in the court for 10 days, watching the face of the man who had carried out with callous detail one of the most brutal, cold-blooded murders of recent years. The counsel glanced up at his secretary. They were more than employee and employed. For family and other reasons, they were friends. "I remember, yes," he said with a kind smile. "And you want to get away for Christmas? You're going to skate and ski in the Alps, aren't you? If I was your age, I'd come with you." Johnson laughed shortly. He was a young man of 26, with a delicate face, like a girl's. "I can catch the morning boat now," he said, "but that's not the reason I'm glad that this trial is over. I'm glad it's over because I've seen the last of that man's dreadful face. It positively haunted me, that white skin with the black hair brushed low over the forehead. It's a thing I shall never forget. And the description of the way the dismembered body was crammed and packed into lime, into that... Don't dwell on it, my dear fellow. interrupted the other, looking at him curiously out of his keen eyes. "Don't think about it. Such pictures have a trick of coming back when one least wants them." He paused a moment. "Now go," he added presently, "and enjoy your holiday. I shall want all your energy for my parliamentary work when you get back. And don't break your neck skiing." Johnson shook hands and took his leave. At the door he turned suddenly. "I knew there was something I wanted to ask you," he said. "Would you mind lending me one of your kit bags? It's too late to get one tonight. They leave in the morning before the shops open." "Of course. I'll send Henry over with it to your rooms. You shall have it the moment I get home." "I promise to take great care of it," said Johnston, gratefully, delighted to think that within 30 hours you'd be nearing the brilliant sunshine of the high Alps in winter. The thought of that criminal court was like an evil dream in his mind. He dined at his club and went on to Bloomsbury, where he occupied the top floor in one of those old gaunt houses in which the rooms are large and lofty. The floor below his own was vacant and unfurnished. And below that were other lodgers whom he did not know. It was cheerless, and he looked forward heartily to a change. The night was even more cheerless. It was miserable, and few people were about. A cold, sleety rain was driving down the streets before the keenest east wind he had ever felt. It howled dismally among the big, gloomy houses of the great squares, and when he reached his rooms he heard it whistling and shouting over the world of black roofs beyond his windows. In the hall he met his landlady, shading a candle from the draughts with her thin hand. "It's come by a man from Mr. Wilburn, sir." She pointed to what was evidently the kit bag. Johnson thanked her and took it upstairs with him. "I shall be going abroad in the morning for 10 days, Miss Monks," he said. "I'll leave an address for letters." And I hope you'll have a very Merry Christmas, sir," she said in a raucous, wheezy voice that suggested spirits. "And better weather than this." "I hope so, too," replied her lodger, shuddering a little as the wind went roaring down the street outside. When he got upstairs, he heard the sleet falling against the window panes. He put his kettle on to make a cup of hot coffee, and then set about putting a few things in order for his absence. "And now I must pack, such as my packing is," he laughed to himself, and he set to work at once. He liked packing, for it brought snow mountains so vividly before him, and made him forget the unpleasant scenes of the past 10 days. Besides, it was not elaborate in nature. His friend had lent him the very thing, the stout canvas kit bag, sack-shaped, with holes round the neck for the brass bar of the padlock. It was a bit shapeless, true, not much to look at, but its capacity was unlimited. There was no need to pack carefully. He shoved in his waterproof coat, his fur cap and gloves, his skates and climbing boots, his sweaters, snow boots and ear caps, and then on top of these he piled his woolen shirts and underwear, his thick socks, puttees and knickerbockers. The dress suit came next, in case the hotel people were dressed for dinner, and then, thinking of the best way to pack his white shirt, he paused a moment to reflect. "That's the worst of these kit bags," he mused vaguely, standing in the center of his sitting room, where he had come to fetch some string. It was after 10 o'clock. A furious gust of wind rattled the windows, as though to hurry him up, and he thought with pity of the poor Londoners, whose Christmas would be spent in such a climate, while he was skimming over snowy slopes and bright sunshine and dancing in the evening with rosy-cheeked girls. Ah, that reminded him. He must put in his dancing pumps and evening socks. He crossed over from his sitting room to the cupboard on the landing where he kept his linen. And as he did so, he heard someone coming up the stairs. He stood still a moment on the landing to listen. It was Mrs. Monk's step, he thought. She must be coming up at the last post. But then the steps ceased suddenly, and he heard no more. They were at least 2 flights down, and he came to the conclusion they were too heavy be those of his bibulous landlady. No doubt, they came to the conclusion they were too heavy to be those of his... Oh, no doubt they belonged to a late lodger who had mistaken his floor. He went into his bedroom and packed his pumps and dress shirts as best he could. The kit bag by this time was 2/3 full and stood upright on its own base, like a sack of flour. For the first time he noticed that it was old and dirty, the canvas faded and worn, and that it had obviously been subjected to rather rough treatment. It was not a very nice bag to have sent him, certainly not a new one, or one that his chief valued. He gave the matter a passing thought and went on to his packing. Once or twice, however, he caught himself wondering who it could have been wandering down below. For Mrs. Monks had not come up with letters, and the floor was empty and unfurnished. From time to time, moreover, he was almost certain he heard a soft tread of someone padding about over the bare boards, cautiously, stealthily, as silently as possible, and further, that the sounds had been coming distinctly nearer. For the first time in his life, he began to feel a little creepy. Then, as though to emphasize this feeling, an odd thing happened. As he left the bedroom, having just packed his recalcitrant white shirts, he noticed that the top of the kit bag lopped over towards him with an extraordinary resemblance to a human face. The canvas fell into a fold like a nose and forehead, and the brass rings for the padlock just filled the position of the eyes. A shadow, or was it a travel stain? He could not tell exactly. It looked like hair. It gave him rather a turn, for it was so absurdly, so outrageously like the face of John Turk, the murderer. He laughed and went into the front room where the light was stronger. That horrid case has got on my mind, he thought. I shall be glad of a change of scene and air. In the sitting room, however, he was not pleased to hear again that stealthy tread upon the stairs. To realize that it was much closer than before, as well as unmistakably real. And this time he got up and went out to see who it could be, creeping about on the upper staircase at so late an hour. But the sound ceased, and there was no one visible on the stairs. He went to the floor below, not without trepidation, and turned on the electric light to make sure that no one was hiding in the empty rooms of the unoccupied suite. There was not a stick of furniture large enough to hide a dog. Then he called out over the banisters to Miss Monks. There was no answer. And his voice echoed down into the dark vault of the house and was lost in the roar of the gale that howled outside. Everyone was in bed and asleep, everyone except himself, and the owner of this soft and stealthy tread. My absurd imagination, I suppose, he thought. Must have been the wind after all, although it seemed so very real and close, I thought. He went back to his packing. It was by this time getting on toward midnight. He drank his coffee up and lit another pipe, the last before turning in. It is difficult to say exactly at what point fear begins, when the causes of that fear are not plainly before the eyes. And here we take our break. Right? Cool? All right. I hope you guys are cozy. I hope it's howling wind outside, right? And all that craziness. So, got the globe all set up, got some stuff set up, got music set up upstairs. And we're probably going to take a break for that right about now. And welcome to you, my little visit with Forever Green.
Okay.
Welcome.
Hello.
This is Forever Green.
This is Yusuf.
This is Kara. That's Christy.
Alright.
Hello,
everybody.
Yes, so I have my sweet beverage. Hope you do too. And we are going here. I wanted to share this with you. I actually roasted chestnuts, and they're frigging delicious. So I recommend you do the same. Score them with a knife.
Wonderful.
Yeah, score them with a knife, and then they peel open like that, and they are like kind of like potato-y. And
the most flavorful potato that you've ever tasted.
They're really great, so starchy and perfectly no sugar, no salt. All right, I just had to share that with y'all. We're gonna do a couple songs for you, and let me see here. I need to straighten out. I've got a crib sheet down here that you can't see, so let me get into the right place. My cushion. I'm ready when you say go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Silent night, solstice night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon mother, maiden and crow, till the springtime has flown. Sleeping spirits grow strong. Sleeping spirits grow strong.
Silent night, solstice night, silver moon shining bright, snowflakes blanket the summery earth. Your fires welcome the sun's rebirth. Soon the light is reborn. Soon the light is reborn.
Silent night, solstice night, quiet rest till the light bring us forth awakening. Fairies rest your spirit in peace.
Happy solstice. Those are tough, but
The tough
it's
are
still
timing.
a
The tough are timing.
wonderful, wonderful world that
Oh.
we're all part of.
Sure,
Yeah. I
Oh
like
my
it.
God, Omicron. Well, we're not going to stay Omicron. I mean, nobody's going to actually be trapped up in Omicron like we were before. You know, now it's just like, oh my God, Macron, OMG Macron.
Are we ready to do
Kind of,
another
I'm
song?
sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
This
okay.
I like this one, and it hits me in a deep way, man. So I hope you all enjoy it. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Take it.
The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are all so warm. The faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? You're really saying, I love you. My baby's crying, I watch them grow, and they'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Thank you.
Okay. Fall alive. Ooh, Last Christmas I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. Last Christmas I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. Ooh. Once bitten and twice shy, I keep my distance, but you still catch my eye. Tell me, baby, do you recognize me? Well, it's been a year, it doesn't surprise me. Merry Christmas, I wrapped it up and sent it with a note saying I love you, I meant it. Now I know what a fool I've been. But if you kissed me now, I know you'd fool me again. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, but the very next day, you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, but the very next day, you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. Special, oh. Oh, my baby. A crowded room, friends with tired eyes, hiding from you and your soul of fire. My God, I thought you were someone to rely on. Me, I guess I was a shoulder to cry on, a face on a lover with a fire in his heart, a man undercover, but you tie me apart. Ooh, now I found a real love, you never fool me again. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, but the very next day, you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. Time, right? Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, but the very next day, you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. Special. Face on the lover with the fire in his heart. I gave you my man undercover, but you tore him apart. Maybe next year, I'll give it to someone. I'll give it to someone special. Special. Ooh. Maybe this year, I'll give it to someone. I'll give it to someone special. Merry Christmas.
If you liked that, there might be more later on. I'm not sure how I'm going to edit this video. I just did we do an adequate beard check before we started this episode? Let me have a quick look. And there's a little hair right here. We just check this and make it so beautiful. Indeed, so we have it. And whiskers, we have got the whiskers, don't we have whiskers? Okay, well, anyway, so, yeah, you'll probably remember this tie from the Dracula days, and well, I'm wearing this thing because it kind of matches that thing, you know what I'm saying? So, and that thing is, of course, the ring that my father left with my mother when I was maybe just born or not sure. So, we talked about that in an earlier episode. Oh man, I hope you have a Christmas beverage. Go make yourself a cocoa. Oh man, I forgot to turn everything off. Quit everything. Silly me. We are doing stuff and things tonight, man. Are you liking it? Let's see here. Stuff and things. We got more stuff and things. More stuff and things. So I'm gonna just read the last line. And hopefully you'll find the story creepy. Because do you remember what happened? Yeah, I don't have to tell you. I don't have to tell you this stuff because you guys are bright, man. I'm glad you're here. Just keep hanging, because we got more special coolness coming up, including this neato story by Algernon Blackwood. No, I didn't button my cuffs. So it's difficult to say exactly at what point fear begins, when the causes of that fear are not plainly before the eyes. Impressions gather on the surface of the mind, film by film, as ice gathers upon the surface of still water, but often so lightly that they claim no definite recognition from consciousness. Then a point is reached where the accumulated impressions become a definite emotion, and the mind realizes that something has happened. With something of a start, Johnson suddenly recognized that he felt nervous, oddly nervous. Also, that for some time past, the causes of this feeling had been gathering slowly in his mind. That he had only just reached a point where he was forced to acknowledge them. It was a singular and curious malaise that had come over him, and he hardly knew what to make of it. He felt as though he were doing something that was strongly objected to by another person. Another person, moreover, who had some right to object. It was a most disturbing and disagreeable feeling, not unlike the persistent promptings of conscience. Almost, in fact, as if he were doing something he knew to be wrong. Yet though he searched vigorously and honestly in his mind, he could nowhere lay his finger upon the secret of this growing uneasiness, and it perplexed him more. It distressed and frightened him. "Pure nerves, I suppose," he said aloud, with a forced laugh. "Mountain air would cure all that. Ah," he added, still speaking to himself, "that reminds me, my snow glasses." He was standing by the door of the bedroom during this brief soliloquy, and as he passed quickly towards the sitting room to fetch them from the cupboard, he saw in the corner of his eye the indistinct outline of a figure standing on the stairs, a few feet from the top. It was someone in a stooping position, with one hand on the banisters and the face peering up towards the landing. At the same moment he heard a shuffling footstep. The person who had been creeping about below all this time had at last come up to his own floor. Who in the world could it be? And what, in the name of heaven, did he want? Johnson caught his breath sharply and stood stock still. Then, after a few seconds' hesitation, he found his courage and turned to investigate. The stairs, he saw to his utter amazement, were empty. There was no one. He felt a series of cold shivers run over him, and something about the muscles of his legs gave a little and grew weak. For the space of several minutes he peered steadily into the shadows that congregated about the top of the staircase where he had seen the figure, and then he walked fast, almost ran, in fact, to the light of the front room, but hardly Had he passed inside the doorway when he heard someone come up the stairs behind him with a quick bound and go swiftly into his bedroom. It was a heavy, but at the same time, stealthy footstep, the tread of somebody who did not wish to be seen. And it was at this precise moment that the nervousness he had hitherto experienced leaped the boundary line and entered the state of fear, almost of acute unreasoning fear. Before it turned into terror, there was a further boundary to cross, and beyond that again lay the region of pure horror. Johnson's position was an unenviable one. "By Jove, that was someone on the stairs then," he muttered, his flesh crawling all over. "And whoever it was has now gone into my bedroom." His delicate pale face turned absolutely white, and for some minutes he hardly knew what to think or do. Then he realized intuitively that delay only set a premium upon fear, and he crossed the landing boldly and went straight into the other room where a few seconds before the steps had disappeared. "Who's there? Is that you, Mrs. Monks?" he called aloud. As he went, he heard the first half of his words echo down the empty stairs, while the second half fell dead against the curtains in a room that apparently held no other human figure than his own. "Who's there?" he called again, in a voice unnecessarily loud, that only just held firm. "What do you want here?" The curtains swayed very lightly, and as he saw it, his heart felt as if it almost missed a beat, yet he dashed forward and drew them aside with a rush. A window streaming with rain was all that met his gaze. He continued his search, but in vain. The cupboards held nothing but rows of clothes hanging motionless, and under the bed there was no sign of anyone hiding. He stepped backward into the middle of the room, and as he did so, something all but tripped him up. Turning with a sudden spring of alarm, he saw the kit bag. "Odd," he thought. "That's not where I left it." A few moments before, it had surely been on his right, between the bed and the bath. Did he not remember having moved it? He did not remember having moved it. It was very curious. What in the world was the matter with everything? Were all his senses gone batty? But a terrific gust of wind tore at the windows, dashing the sleet against the glass with the force of a small gunshot, then fled away, howling dismally over the waste of Bloomsbury Road. A sudden vision of the Channel next day rose in his mind and recalled him sharply to his realities. "There's no one here at any rate, that's quite clear," he exclaimed aloud. Yet at the time he uttered them, he knew perfectly well that his words were not true, and that he did not believe them himself. He felt exactly as though someone was hiding close about him, watching all his movements, trying to hinder his packing in some way. "Two of my senses," he added, keeping up the pretense, "have played me the most absurd tricks. The steps I heard, the figure I saw, were both entirely imaginary." He went back to the front room, poked the fire into a blaze, and sat down before it to think. What impressed him more than anything else was the fact that the kit bag was no longer where he had left it. It had been dragged nearer to the door. What happened afterward, that night, happened was to a man already excited by fear, and was perceived by a mind that had not the full and proper control, therefore, of the senses. Outwardly, Johnson remained calm and master of himself to the end, pretending to the very last that everything he witnessed had a natural explanation, or was merely delusions of his tired nerves. But inwardly, in his very heart, he knew all along that someone had been hiding downstairs in the empty room, in the empty suite, when he came in, and that this person had watched his opportunity and then stealthily made his way up to the bedroom, and that all he saw and heard afterwards, from the moving of the kit bag to, well, the other things the story has to tell, were caused directly by the presence of this invisible person. And it was here, just when he most desired to keep his mind and thoughts controlled, that the vivid pictures received day after day upon the mental plates exposed in the courtroom of the Old Bailey came strongly to light, enveloped themselves in the dark room of his inner vision. Unpleasant, haunting memories have a way of coming to life again, just when the mind least desires them, in the silent watches of the night, on sleepless pillows, during the lonely hours spent by sick and dying beds. And so now, in the same way, Johnson saw nothing but the dreadful face of John Turk, the murderer, lowering at him from every corner of his mental field of vision. The white skin, the evil eyes, the fringe of black hair low over the forehead. All the pictures of those 10 days in court crowded back into his mind, unbidden and very vivid. "This is all rubbish and nerves," he exclaimed at length, springing with sudden energy from his chair. "I shall finish my packing and go to bed. I'm overwrought, overtired. No doubt at this rate I shall hear steps and things all night." But his face was deadly white, all the same. He snatched up his field glasses and walked across the bedroom, humming a music hall song as he went, a trifle too loud to be natural. And the instant he crossed the threshold and stood within the room, something turned cold about his heart. And he felt that every hair on his head stood up. The kit bag lay close in front of him, several feet nearer to the door than he had left it, and just over its crumpled top he saw a head and face slowly sinking down out of sight, as though someone were crouching behind it to hide. And at the same moment, a sound like a long-drawn sigh was distinctly audible in the still air about him, between the gusts of the storm outside. Johnson had more courage and willpower than the girlish indecision of his face indicated, but at first such a wave of terror came over him that for some seconds he could do nothing but stand and stare. A violent trembling ran down his back and legs, and he was conscious of a foolish, almost hysterical impulse to scream aloud. That sigh seemed in his very ear, and the air still quivered with it. It was unmistakably a human sigh. "Who's there?" he said at length, finding his voice. But though he meant to speak with loud decision, the tones came out instead in a faint whisper, for he had partly lost control of his tongue and lips. "Who's there?" He stepped forward so that he could see all round and over the kit bag. Of course, there was nothing there. Nothing but the faded carpet and bulging canvas sides. He put out his hands and threw open the mouth of the sack where it had fallen over, being only 3 parts full. Then he saw for the first time that round the inside, some 6 inches from the top, there ran a broad smear of dull crimson. It was an old and faded blood stain. He uttered a scream and drew back his hands as if they had been burned. At the same time, the kit bag gave a faint but unmistakable lurch towards the door. Johnson collapsed backwards, searching with his hands for support for something solid, and the door, being further behind him than he realized, received his weight just in time to prevent his falling, and shut with a resounding bang. At the same moment, the swinging of his left arm accidentally touched the electric switch, and the light in the room went out. It was an awkward and disagreeable predicament, and if Johnson had not been possessed of real pluck, he might have done all manner of foolish things. As it was, however, he pulled himself together and groped furiously for the little brass knob to turn the light on again, but the rapid closing of the door had set the coats hanging on it a-swinging, and his fingers became entangled in a confusion of sleeves and pockets, so there was some moments before he found the switch. And in those moments of bewilderment and terror, 2 things happened that set him beyond recall over the boundary into the region of genuine horror. He distinctly heard the kit bag shuffling heavily across the floor in jerks. And close in front of his face sounded once again the sigh of a human being. In his anguished efforts to find the brass button on the wall, he nearly scraped the nails from his fingers. But even then, in those frenzied moments of alarm, so swift and alert the impressions of mind keyed up by vivid emotion, he had time to realize that he dreaded the return of the light, and that it might be better for him to stay hidden in the merciful screen of darkness. It was but the impulse of a moment, however, and before he had time to act upon it, he had yielded automatically to the original desire. And the room was flooded again with light. But the second instinct had been right. It would have been better for him to have stayed in the shelter of his kind darkness. For there, close before him, bending over the half-packed kit bag, clear as life in the merciless glare of the electric light, stood the figure of John Turk, the murderer. Not 3 feet from him the man stood, the fringe of black hair marked plainly against the pallor of the forehead. The whole horrible presentiment of the scoundrel as vivid as he'd seen him out day after day in the Old Bailey, when he stood there in the dark, cynical and callous under the very shadow of the gallows. In a flash, Johnson realized what it all meant. The dirty and much-used bag, the smear of crimson within the top, the dreadful stretched condition of the bulging sides. He remembered how the victim's body had been stuffed into a canvas bag for burial, the ghastly dismembered fragments forced with lime into this very bag. And the bag itself produced as evidence. It all came back to him clear as day, very softly and stealthily. His hand groped behind him for the handle of the door, but before he could actually turn it, the very thing that he most of all dreaded came about, and John Turk lifted his devil's face and stared at him. At the same moment, that heavy sigh passed through the air of the room, formulated somehow into words. "It's my bag, and I want it." Johnson just remembered clawing the door open and then falling in a heap upon the floor of the landing. As he tried frantically to make his way into the front room, he remained unconscious for a long time, and it was still dark when he opened his eyes and realized that he was lying stiff and bruised on the cold boards. Then the memory of what he had seen rushed back into his mind. He promptly fainted again. When he woke the second time, the wintry dawn was just beginning to peep in at the windows, painting the stairs in a cheerless, dismal grey, and he managed to crawl into the front room and cover himself with an overcoat in the armchair, where at length he fell asleep. A great clamour woke him. He recognized Mrs. Monk's voice, loud and voluble. "What? You ain't been to bed, sir? Are you ill? Has anything happened? And there's an urgent gentleman to see you, although it ain't 7 o'clock yet, and—" Who is it?" he stammered. I'm all right, thanks. I fell asleep in my chair, I suppose." "Someone from Wilbram's. He says he ought to see you quick before you go abroad, and I told him—" "Show him up, please, at once," said Johnson, whose head was whirling, and his mind was still full of dreadful visions. Mr. Wilbram's man came in with many apologies, and explained briefly and quickly that an absurd mistake had been made, and that the wrong kit bag had been sent over the night before. Henry somehow got hold of the one that came over from the courtroom, and Mr. Wilbram had only discovered it when he saw his own lying in his room, and that's why it had not gone to you," the old man said. "Oh," said Johnson stupidly, "and he must have brought you the one from the murder case instead, sir, I'm afraid." The man continued, without the ghost of an expression on his face. "The one John Turk packed a dead body in Miss Wilbram's. Awful upset about it, sir, and he told me to come over first thing this morning with the right one, as you would leave him by the boat." He pointed to a clean-looking kit bag on the floor, which he had just brought. "Now, to bring the other one back, sir," he added casually. For some minutes, Johnson could not find his voice. At last he pointed in the direction of his bedroom. "Perhaps you would kindly unpack it for me. Just empty the things out on the floor." The man disappeared into the other room and was gone for 5 minutes. Johnson heard the shifting to and fro of the bag, the rattle of the skates and boots being unpacked. "Thank you, sir," the man said, returning with the bag folded over him. "Can I do anything more to help you, sir?" What is it?" Seeing that "What is it?" asked Johnson, seeing that he still had something he wished to say. The man shuffled and looked mysterious. Beg pardon, sir, but knowing you're interested in the Turk case, thought maybe you'd like to know what's happened." "Yes." John Turk killed himself last night with poison immediately on getting his release. And he left a note for Miss Wilbram, saying as he'd be much obliged if they'd put him away, same as the woman he murdered in the old kit bag." What time did he do it?" asked Johnson. 10 o'clock last night, sir, the warden says. And there you have it. Right? O.M.G. Macron. What are we doing, man? Oh, man. That was cool. That was cool. Was that not cool? That was cool. Come on. That was fun. You just had some fun, you bastards. Um, I don't know how we're going to do this. There might be a musical break coming up now.
Here we are.
Watch
We're recording.
rivers go through the tide, but never leave the stream, forming permanent sand. And so the days run through my eyes, and still the same, they stay the same. And these. Did it happen? Maybe it did. Otherwise, did you enjoy that? If it did happen. Maybe our friend wants to say something now? Not sure. I'm not sure if this stuff is going to work or if anything happens at all. But never you worry. I'm still thinking of you. I miss you all very much. I can't wait to see you in real life. I have seen some of you in real life. Ugh, and I love you so much. Thank you very much. Well, anyway, Merry Christmas to every last one of you. And, yeah, so, Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year. And if you don't catch this on Christmas, watch it for the New Year. Man, come on, man. We still have fun together. So, we're still going to have some fun. I got people coming over. You got people coming over. Right? Anyway. Thank you so much. That concludes another episode of Storytelling Live.
Okay, me too. We're all just going to go with our instincts.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up tonight.
Thank you for having us. This has been
Forever
really
Green.
awesome.
This is my idea of a good time.
Mine too.
This is our last tune for the night, and the story has ended, and I'm glad that you are hanging out for an extra little bit here. When you're on the freeway, and someone is signaling to enter from the on-ramp, do pause and let them in. Today, it was a little bit sketch for me, and I signaled and tried to get into my lane to join the freeway, and someone sped up so that I could not enter. What's with that move? I don't get what it gets you. But what if I was your next best friend? What if I was your cousin? What if I was your father? What if I was your son? Why don't you just give the people who are trying to get on the freeway a little bit of leeway?
Have some respect, people. Come on now.
So Omicron's down upon us, and that's okay, man, because we're good under pressure, right?
Right.
I don't want to hit you with my guitar. No, you're all cool. But just don't let me. You don't have to. It's all right. So this song came to me in a dream. I woke up with the lyrics, the whole thing, pretty much the chords. It was so weird. I didn't know how I was gonna begin it. It just started.
Nothing cooler than a song that comes at you from a dream.
I guess. It was a time for the line. The troubles that lived so right. And you feel the days more. Little score.
Settle that scar.
he is known forever.
As known
This
forever.
town puts up its fists every night, and the alleys are narrow and cold.
They're narrow and cold.
It was a time once you beat up his dad. In a few hours more, he'll pummel his guts to the floor.
His guts to the
Now
floor.
the doors are shut, the doors are too, and the world knows who are the drinkers.
Who are the
The streets they ring
drinkers?
with battles all night, and the morning sun shines on the fallen.
It shines on
He
the
finds his dead at the old car park, rummaging the dregs of his whiskey.
the dregs of his
Come,
whiskey.
there's buzz. The tanning would be too easy.
Would be too
It was a damn fine life. Finally caught up with his drag. In a few seconds more, he'll finally settle the score. But old folk have a way of pushing us hard, even when they know who they're losing. If it's money you're after, I've got nothing to spare. But if it's another lesson, I'm willing to give it.
He's willing to
You're poor,
give
well,
it.
son, worse just like me, and you'll never amount to anything.
You'll never turn
And that's when our boy took his man by the horns and smashed his mug right into the pavement. It was a grind. Finally kicked the ground. In a few hours of more, only God picks him up from the floor. It was a time fine life. He finally married his dad.
He married his dad.
They both took to wings and soared. It was a time fine life. He finally beat up his dad. In a few hours of more, he finally married the whore.
He married that
It was a time fine life. It was a time fine life. Thank you. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas.